welcome to the MAG. Today we're going to talk about the place of women during the World War I. In fact, it's a subject who has been chosen by you, dear viewers. So for this magazine, the team of the MAG and me went to the city to see if you know the place of women during the World War I. And we found a surprising results. Watch video. Do you have an idea about the place of women during the World War I?
No, I don't.
No?
Sorry.
No?
Sorry.
Okay, well thanks, bye.
Bye.
Place of women during the World War I.
I don't know, sorry.
No?
No,
Really?
I don't know.
Okay, thanks, bye.
Oh no, I don't know, sorry.
No? And you?
I worked about it last year, but I don't remember now.
Okay. Thank you, bye. During the World War I.
No, I don't know.
No, really?
No.
Place of women during the World War I.
don't know, sorry.
Ready?
Yes.
Okay, men during the World War I.
No, I don't know.
Ready?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Of women during the World War I.
Yes, of course. During the First World War, women played a major role in the war effort. Indeed, they had several roles. First, in the countryside, women had to take the role of in this part of France, women suffer a lot. So they used to be raped and
The team of the MAG and me found amazing results. To better understand, watch now two testimonies.
Outbreak of World War I, Britain's women was mainly tied to a life of domesticity. Their places still largely in the home. Now, to fill the gap left by a generation of fighting men, as Britain's men headed abroad to fight, women took their place en masse in factories, shops, and offices across the country. They also worked across the economy, from tram drivers and train cleaners to postal workers and police patrols. More than 1 million women take the chance to join the workforce between 1914 and 1918, and everything had the potential to change. The vast majority of these women were drafted into the civilian workforce to replace conscripted men or work in greatly expanded munitions factories. Thousands served in the military in support roles, example as nurses. Many women volunteered on the home front as teachers and workers in traditionally male jobs. Large numbers were hired in the munitions industries. The latter were let go when the munitions industries downsized at the end of the war. They volunteered for the money and for patriotism. The wages were double of what they had previously made, although were still less than that of a man's. The women working in these munitions factories were called munitionnettes, and the work in which these women did was long, tiring, as well as exhausting. When productivity was all that mattered, there was no work-life balance on offer. In order to keep pace with demand for the front line, 12-hour shifts were common, and some women worked 13 days without a break. The wartime woman worker producing munitions for the front is among the most familiar visual legacies of the war. But conditions were poor and the work was arduous. The women working in munitions factories were from mainly lower-class families and were between the ages of 18 and 30 years old. A critical role consisted of making gun shells, aircraft, and other materials that supplied the war at the front, which was dangerous, repetitive, and monotonous work because they were constantly around and encased in toxic fumes. The factories all over Britain in which women workers were often unheated, deafeningly noisy, and full of noxious fumes. Some of the common diseases and illness which occurred were drowsiness, headaches, eczema, loss of appetite, shortness of breath, vomiting, palpitation, constipation, rapid weak pulse, pains in the limbs, jaundice, and mercury poisoning. TNT, for instance, turned thousands of workers' skin yellow, the so-called canaries of the arms factories. Although figures were suppressed to keep morale high, accidents were common. An explosion at a TNT plant in Silvertown, East London, cost 73 people their lives and destroyed hundreds of nearby homes in January 1917. Women often found themselves doing jobs that had been simplified into a series of unskilled tasks. The workers of one factory in Kedgeley, Gloucestershire, fired over 70 million shells in the 4 years of war.
Today I can see that people doesn't know exactly the role of women during the World War I. Even if they were not on battlefield, they helped in many other ways. During the World War I, the women had to take the place of the men left to the war. Some participated in the war effort by working on factories or by being nursing the soldiers. Others had to take back a business family, others worked on fields, others were housewives, and so on and so on. I'm going to tell you what my great-grandmother told me about the Great War and which role she held. She worked on field. She always told me that at this time the women had to become the head of the families and they were supported by the children and the old men. My great-grandmother was enormously supported by her son, my grandfather. She was able to continue to assure the agricultural yield of the family. However, a few months later, the fertilizers and soil production had fallen at least a third. My great-grandmother also told me that she had friends who lived in the cities who were housewives. They had to take care of their families alone, but it was not an easy task because of the lack of the food and the lack of the money. This situation marked many women of the Great War. 1 year later, the premature death of my great-grandfather urged my great-grandmother to become a war godmother. These women sent and received letters from the soldiers who needs to express their feelings about the war and about the battle. She told me that it was a way to forget the death of her husband. She always told me that the soldiers had to feel support by people, stay in the cities, by their families, by the people who were safe. Finally, we can see that women lived the war like men, but in another way. They helped by giving moral support, by keeping honor and business on the families. And all that in spite of the lack of everyday needs like food, money, and other things.
So this is the end of the magazine. Thank you very much for your loyalty. See you tomorrow for a new magazine.